shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
So I am not the preacher today, but I do get to build a bridge today. When Pastor John and I were talking about his visiting and how we would go about this, I asked permission, and he very generously gave it to build this little bridge. In both Exodus and in the Gospel, we are really gathered around the dream of a drink of water. Now, out in the wilderness, the Israelites, whom God has saved and God has led and God's provided for over and over again, the Israelites really aren't very kind in the way they request their drink of water. There is complaining, there is whining, there is blaming, there is entitlement. And you know what, God, if it's just going to be this miserable, let's just go back to Egypt and slavery and everything you rescued us from. It's not real pretty. In the gospel, the cup of water is altogether different. Now, year after year, when this gospel comes around, one of the things I'm sure I always say about this poor woman is she's been around the block. And she has been around the block, and around and around and around. But this year, my hero, Dr. David Lose, talks about her as a tragic figure. Because whatever has caused her to have husband after husband after husband, there's been tragedy upon tragedy upon tragedy for her. Whether she has buried 5 husbands, which we don't know, or if she's barren so she's been passed off to another and another, it doesn't really matter. What we know about this woman is she has known either grief or rejection over and over and over again. She's out at the well at the middle of the day, not because that's the place to be, it's miserably hot. She's out there either because it's been so uncomfortable for her to be with polite society that she goes there when she's not going to run into anybody, or she is considered such bad luck because of everything that's happened to her, they've pushed her out. So there she is, isolated, alone, this tragic figure. And then the conversation, being asked for a cup of cold water. And in that conversation that unfolds between she and Jesus, she, the tragic figure, is absolutely transformed. She, who's been pushed out, that the culture, the society, her town has nothing to do with her, has this experience with Jesus. She goes back and tells them about it. They believe her, and they follow her back to the source of that life and that transformation. So today, our guest gets to speak to us about tragic situations around food, around water, but also about the transformation that can happen as we share a cup of water. Pastor John, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor Leah. And that's a fabulous jumping off point, because that is really part and parcel of this lesson today. It's one of my favorites in the Gospels, of how this woman gives Jesus and what she thinks is simply a glass of water, but she is transformed, and she meets Jesus. And I love her line when she runs off into the town, "Come meet a man who told me everything I've ever done. He can't be the Messiah, can he?" And the answer is, of course he is. It's when we give a cup of water, when you feed the hungry, you meet Jesus, and you are transformed. Thank you so much for the many ways that you transform lives. Food is part and parcel of your ministry of feeding the hungry here locally and around the world. And on behalf of Foods Resource Bank, on behalf of Lutheran World Relief, thank you so very much for all the many people around the world and here locally that you have impacted. They can't be here, but I am here to say thank you. Now I want to just share a little bit about Lutheran World Relief and to transition then into this new venture that you are doing. Lutheran World Relief is affiliated with Foods Resource Bank, and on behalf of the 220 colleagues that I have that are working around the world, I bring you greetings. And from our president, former Ambassador Daniel Speckard, I also bring you greetings. And you are in many places around the world, not only through FRB, but through Lutheran World Relief. One place that you are at right now is in Syria. In the Aleppo district, 2 bakeries are being rebuilt right now. They're being rebuilt, and soon 30 people will be employed in them, and 80,000 people will be fed with bread. And bread is a staple for Syrians, yes, but it's a sign of hope in the midst of destruction. Also, inside Syria, you are working to help rebuild some structures so that children and youth have safe places to go. In the refugee camp in Jordan, you are there working alongside with Lutheran World Federation too to help mentor women to start businesses so they can form businesses while they're in refugee camps, and then when they land in a more permanent place to continue on and run those businesses. I'm here to share with you this venture you are on through Foods Resource Bank and Lutheran World Relief in India. And so the picture that's on the screen there is of one of the first trips that our president Daniel Speckard took. It was to India. I'll let you figure out where Daniel is standing in that picture there. And you can meet some of the women that he met with. And the genesis of this project came when he met with them, and it was at the end of the project. They were now growing vegetables that were feeding their families for 12 months of the year. They had extra left over so that they were selling at the market. And Daniel asked them, "What else can we do for you?" And so they stepped aside and they huddled and they talked about it. And they came back and they told Daniel, "There's a village down the road. Can you help them?" And Daniel was taken back by that request. When he came back, it was shortly after that that he met with some other Lutheran pastors, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, ELCA pastors, and he shared that story with them, and they said, "You know what? We can do something about that. We can take that on." And so a pastor in North Carolina and one in Minnesota organized a group. Now you are part of that. There are 9 congregations in the United States that are supporting this project in Bihar to go down the road from where these women are to the next 76 villages to make a difference in their lives. And so I'm here to say thank you, and you are on that journey with them. So this slide talks about Bihar. Bihar is a state in India. It's in northeast India. It's one of the poorest states in India. It's about the same size as the state here in the United States of Indiana. And there's 109 million people that live in Bihar. So think of 109 million people living in the state of Indiana, and you kind of begin to get a sense of what it is like in the state of Bihar. The majority of the population is marginalized, low literacy rates, high poverty. In the villages where you are working, while class system has been officially outlawed, it is still functioning. And so these are the lowest caste people, the Dalits. And it's the women Dalits that are part of this project. When you come into a village, I'm pointing at that screen because that's what I'm looking at. When you come into the village, this is what you see. You see a welcoming committee. You are treated like royalty. I heard this from some of your members who have gone to India. When you come there, you're given things to wear. I was given a necklace in one village of chickpeas, which was very appropriate because that's all I ate in India to try to make sure I didn't get sick. So it was kind of a standing joke then with the rest of the LWR staff that John was wearing this chickpea necklace. But they are so incredibly thankful and appreciative of what you are doing. The goals for the project, they're really pretty simple. To help families go from 4 months of food security to 12 months. To knowing that they have food for 12 months. So it's also about equipping women. And I'll have a story that I'll share about the importance of equipping women. But part of it is to help them organize self-help groups. And you'll see a picture of that in just a few minutes. But it's also to diversify crops. Because they are just growing some basic crops that don't have as much nutritional base. And by diversifying crops, you can grow them year-round. So it's about learning to diversify crops. And the one aspect that is new to this project that we've just added that wasn't part of a previous project, and that is nutrition. To educate on nutrition, particularly the nutritional needs for children, for the elderly, and for women who are pregnant or nursing. Uh-oh, I'm not advancing. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so here's a picture of a self-help group. In each village, in each of these 76 villages, there will be 20 or so women who will organize and gather. They'll learn about how to advocate for themselves. They'll also start a bank. And so they will put money into this bank because up to this point, the only way access to credit they've had is through money lenders that charge exorbitant rates. So they just get deeper and deeper into debt. This way, when a child becomes ill and they need to see a doctor, they can borrow from themselves and repay their own banks. It's also a support group for them as well. Okay, advance the slide. So here is, her name is Sabita Devi, and she is one of the participants right now in this project. This picture was taken 2 months ago. And you can see she is the treasurer of her self-help group. Now that picture, when you look at it, you got to say, you know what? She's going places. She's motivated. She's in charge. She has 5 children. She also lives with her in-laws, and they have enough food for about 5 months of the year. And then they scrape the rest of the year together. This project will allow them to have food for 12 months of the year. Okay, next slide. And this, you can kind of see the diversification of the food that is grown. It's absolutely phenomenal. And they eat well. The kids start growing and becoming healthier as they eat. But more importantly, too, they also have excess. So they take this to the market and sell it. And then with the excess money, the first thing that excess money goes for is to send kids to school. Now let me tell you, talk about transformational change in the life of families in one of the poorest areas in the world. It's food security and then education. You are transforming lives for generations to come. And it starts with food. All right, next slide. And so this is a picture, too, of another family that is currently participating. This is Shushila Devi, and she's in the back row. She's 30 years old, and she has some medical needs. She's very weak at this time and can't really do much lifting, but she can grow vegetables. And so her hope and goal is once her family gets fed and they have excess food to sell at the market, then she will go seek medical help. And so that is another aspect of this project. And, you know, lives are transformed, as I said, through education, but just having the security, the food security for 12 months of the year and feeling more empowered is transformative. I'd like to end here with a story to just underscore that. When our president, Daniel Speckard, was in India, and he met with some of the participants of a previous project, he learned about a time after the project was done when the women were taking their vegetables to the market. They were traveling down the road, and the owner of the road stopped them and said, "You cannot use my road any longer to take your vegetables to the market." Well, they stepped aside and they had a conversation and they talked about it, and they said, "All right, we're going to have a sit-in." And so they sat down and they blocked the road, stopped all the traffic. And the owner of the road became so frustrated with them that he said, "Oh, fine, all right, you can go ahead and take your goods to the market." That probably would not have happened before these self-help groups, before they became empowered and learned that they too have a voice and are important. And they were giving a witness to their children. Their lives are transformed forever. And that had nothing to do with the project, but it's what carries on and lives on long after the project is done. Thank you so much for your partnership. You are part of other congregations. There are 8 other congregations across the United States that are working on this project. It would not be happening without you. There was no money in the budget for Lutheran World Relief to do this project. When those women told Daniel, "There's a village down the road, can you help them?" it wasn't going to happen. But because you and 8 other congregations across the United States have stepped up, it's happening. And I can't tell you how happy we are at Lutheran World Relief and Foods Resource Bank that you are so generous. So as you think of the woman at the well giving Jesus that cup of water, as you think about giving the cup of water to people in India and other people around the world, know that you are seeing the face of Jesus. And in that, Jesus is giving you living water. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Well, this light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, I let my little light shine. Oh, Jesus gave me light, I'm gonna let it shine.